Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Brown, joined with my regular co-host, the excellent James Rhodes. We just saw each other 2 days ago. My days are rolling together. I can't even begin to tell you how tired I am. But
Yes.
what a great, we had a good weekend, obviously, despite the result. But as I was telling you on Saturday, Friday night, I had 2 hours of sleep. I wasn't feeling great. Um, I didn't get to bed on Saturday night until uh, nearly 3. Had to get up at 8 for my daughter's basketball game. Then my other daughter's basketball game. Then the two end of season parties. By about 7 o'clock, I'm still at one of these parties, and I'm about to seriously pass out and collapse. I'm going, and
Yep.
went home, lay in my bed, and when you get so overtired you can't sleep.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
exactly where I was, and I'm too old for this. I'm so exhausted. But anyway, how was your other than the result and the injuries? How was your weekend, mate?
Yeah, not bad. It was traveling on Saturday, getting in there to the game. It was good to meet some people, to speak, to hang out with you, to watch the game, to do all of that. It was a nice little day trip over for that preseason game, and pretty crazy stadium as well. We've
Yeah,
got there.
obviously, in terms of the result, not the most important thing, but the
Yep.
injuries are the big talking point. Very concerning, James. We'll start there. Rasmus Højlund, I don't know if there's been any confirmation of exactly how bad this injury is. Looks like it's a hamstring injury. If it is
Yep.
a hamstring injury, you're looking 3-4 weeks before he trains again, and then match fit. So it could be September before you see Højlund.
Yeah, and I'm a little more hopeful on him. After the
Mm,
match and in the media side of things, when you go downstairs and the players are all walking through, and catch some of them, but he walked through, which was good. Okay, Euro didn't, who we'll talk about in a minute. Hoyland walked through first, and he was walking fine, not much in there. Now with the hamstring, there's a big difference between your normal activity and being athletic, being able to run and play and all that. Um, Hopefully it's a little more minor, a little more precautionary with him. But yeah, easily could be in any case 3 or 4 weeks. It's a good thing we've got a striker already there,
mm.
purchased and in and warming up and ready, and he'll be back in Manchester by the time we get there again to train. And so I mean that's one of the reasons you do it. These things happen. Hoyland is young. He was, besides the back thing last year, he was pretty robust last year. I'm sure he will bounce back pretty quick from this. He has not shown, a proneness to these muscle injuries or anything like that. First game of preseason for him, first 15, 20 minutes, and he was running hard like it was a regular season game, which you could see the effect that had on the team as a positive.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, it's this kind of thing that happens. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that one is somewhat the kind of thing that happens in a vacuum. If that was the only injury, you'd be like, all right, minor hamstring pull, first game back in preseason. But then
Honestly,
it's
man,
worse, huh?
yeah. Look, I mean, it's hard to predict these things, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no definitive line threshold of where this is, stress. The human
Yeah.
body is just not predictable like that. We're not,
Yeah.
mechanistic. It's really difficult to predict when a player's on the verge of getting a muscle injury and when they're not. But it just
Yes.
seems he goes and plays for Denmark, never gets injured, plays for United, boom, the injury crisis starts again. And
Yep.
it, you see him, you see Euro get injured, and it just brought back all those memories of last season. It was just pure frustration and resignation. Like, seriously, another injury. And I mean, it bordered on completely ridiculous, where it was like, this is absurd. And United bring in Lana Euro. I remember putting a tweet out last year at some point going, United could sign Mbappe, and within 2 weeks he'd be out for months. And
Hmm.
here, Lana Euro comes in, picks up an injury, all kinds of rumors about what type of injury he has. Um, I've had people tell me it's a metatarsal injury. I have no idea if that's correct or not. So please, aggregators, do not put that out there. I'm just saying some of the rumors that are being circulated
Hmm.
about. how
There's
bad his
definitely
injury
quite a
is.
bit about it being potentially his foot that a number of people have heard. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and of course, you immediately think of Martinez. I would imagine United would be a lot more competent this time.
Mm.
When Rooney did his, when he came to United, it was 6 weeks before he played again.
Yeah.
Um, but
Now
so
Lissandro,
frustrating.
yeah, to be clear, he had his metatarsal. He played through it for a long time, which is some of the
Mm,
issue. He had one bad surgery that didn't fully take, which was part of the issue again. Because you remember he was back. He was back, but he was playing with discomfort. And then, essentially it got worse. And then so I think he had the second surgery as well, right? And so you would, if it is something like that, it shouldn't be 8, 9 months. It really, really
I'm
shouldn't
fucking
be
hope
that kind
not.
of situation. Like
No.
that would be crazy even for something like that to get done. Ideally it doesn't take that long if that's the reason.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, it's just it feels like they took precautions with Lenny Yoro, didn't play in the training session the night before to keep fresher, as with a few other players. They're doing all the right things, but it's sometimes these things happen. I mean, over the course of the season, I firmly believe we will see fewer injuries, but like because you can have two in one game and then none for a month, but it's just
mm,
it's hard to believe that at the moment when you see two things like that happen in the span of 30 minutes and you think, how is this possible? Is this happening again? And logically, like, you know, is it the story about Pogba burying the hyena bones in the middle of Old Trafford and
mate,
and
it's
we've got
unbelievable.
it's like, what is going on here to make this happen, that
It
no
is.
matter what we change, the outcome seems to be the same? How is
Of
that?
course, it
That
had to
doesn't
be
add up.
Euro. It had to be
Hmm.
Euro. It couldn't have been some, player that, I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, of course, but the one of the players you're excited to see at the start of the season,
Yep.
it is so frustrating. I'm
Yep.
sure by the time we do this podcast next week, Xerxes will be out for a year. You know, after some random event, but
Yeah.
it's very, 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 very frustrating, and you know, I don't know if there were any predictors on this that United could have avoided, but um, where I don't know. I don't know what their condition was like before, but um, inevitably with Holland, the first thing you think about is the stress on his body being overplayed. 2 weeks. These
Yeah.
guys get 2 weeks off, James, which is
I
just not
know.
enough. I mean, preseason used to be at least 6 weeks off. By the time May finished and you started at July again, and the players got 6 weeks off, and they were able to go away, relax. All the injuries, the stress injuries they sustained would give you a time to recuperate, but they have no time anymore. And neither
Yeah.
the 2 weeks off on holiday is fine if you're sitting at a desk, but if you're at, I can't think of any other sport. I'm sure they're out there. I'm just not smart enough to think of them that has that type of um, season where they get 2 weeks off and 11 months a season they're playing football. And then they're flying all over the world. Like, I mean, you can't pay people enough money to stop being human. Their body
Yep.
has limits, and
Yep.
really, really, really frustrating. Um, some of the positives were, the Hoyland goal was fantastic, showed his pace,
Yes.
excellent goal, excellent finish. Result not as important. United changed the team completely. Second
Yep.
half, some positives, negatives. What was your takeaway from the rest of it?
Yeah, I think that there were I think there was a good thing that someone said and that I very much agree with when it comes to preseason, which is that um you really can't say anything by the result, but you'd like to see how a team is going to play, like how they're going to play from a tactical setup, from things like that. Because in general, you practice as you mean to go on, right? And you could practice at half speed, and you would never get a result at half speed. But that doesn't mean you're not going to be doing the actions, the things, the patterns, all of that. And a lot of what we hear about is in the training right now is there's a lot of big focus on these patterns, and that the players themselves are being really split up into their groups based on their positions and working on very specific patterns of action and the things that you'd learn until they become automatic, so that there's a bit more control to the chaos, right? Instead of it's just all over the place. And one of the things I really did like that went under the radar, which I thought was kind of important, is that when Hoyland came off, the fact that it was, you just said, all right, we're just going to stick Hannibal there in the middle. In terms of how the team played, obviously they couldn't do the same things because Hannibal can't do the same things as Rasmus Hoyland. He's not the same player. But the effect that it had on the first team and the second team is that the rest of the players stayed in their positions. And I think that's an important focus, because what have we seen over the last few years is, what position do they play? I mean, there was months Rashford would play on the right, center, left, whatever. There was months, where the forwards would all be swapping around constantly. We have no idea what position that they're in. They go in and out of form. Months where midfielders would be doing the same thing, where fullbacks, where center backs would be doing the same. And by doing a change like that, instead of changing the team around at all, you get the same plan in the second half. There was an obvious plan. We want to run these players out and we want them to be in this position. So I think you note where a player's meant to play. I think, Jadon Sancho is pretty clear. If he's going to stay at United, I'm sure we'll talk about that, he'll be a backup left winger. That's going to be his spot. That's where he's been practicing. That's where he's been training.
Yeah.
That's where if he has a chance, that's probably his best bet, because Ahmad will be on the right side. Of course, it makes sense. Anthony will, of course, be on the right side.
Well, I mean, I'm
Um,
Ahmad or Garnacho, but I thought Ahmad played really well again. Very,
yes,
if you watch him, when you're watching him at a game where when the camera's not on him or the things that he does, he's so technically sound. His
yes,
balance,
he really is.
he's really, really, really technically excellent.
He's a very
And
smooth player. Like,
yeah,
everything he does is
but that,
very
yeah, very
controlled.
aesthetic. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's perfect height for that type of technique. Perfect center of gravity. And you could see a player where it's like last season, what happened wasn't an accident. That is not an average player in good form. That is a
yes,
very good player that is capable of maintaining those standards. And I
yep.
do believe had United have got rid of him, they would have regretted it because
Mm.
he's an exceptional player there. Um, but some of the other things I want to ask you about Mason Mount. What was your opinion on Mount?
I thought he did pretty well. I thought he did pretty well. I really like Mason Mount as a player. When you watch him when he plays, he does a lot of things I think you want. He's always a hard runner. He's always getting himself into good positions, good spaces to take a touch, to pass it first time, but controlled, to do things that don't take a lot of time, where you're not sitting wondering and pondering on the ball. I like that he's been playing in the backup 10 position, and I think that he gives you something different to Bruno Fernandes, perhaps. They're definitely different types of players in terms of their interplay. I thought he had a good showing. I thought he's been bright in the preseason so far. We got to see so little of him last year, and obviously the biggest thing is going to be, that's his spot, which I think it is. Can we get some more rest for Bruno Fernandes, right? Can we actually get Bruno Fernandes to not be playing every single second, because he struggles to in and out of form because of that largely. You can tell how tired he is at times. And he's had incredible luck to, I think, last year missing his first few games from injury, like ever in his club career. But that should also be a bit of a warning sign
Well,
too
didn't
when we
he
talk
the
about
season
injuries.
before he came to United though? Didn't he only play like 11 games for Chelsea?
No, sorry, Bruno, I meant,
Oh,
has
sorry,
never missed
Bruno.
any games.
Sorry,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, of
saying that
course.
we need to start resting him, because there's warning signs there on his tiredness, on the overuse of him. And so if Mason Mount can be healthy, then if he is at 10 and that's where he's going to play, like where Bruno is playing, then let's use him. Let's rotate. We've got Europa. We've got all these cups. Like, let's
Mm.
actually rotate Bruno Fernandes in and out of the team and get him rest. And so we're not always reliant, and so he also doesn't struggle, where games where he's obviously tired and overdoing it. So I think that's really a positive, that a player we basically didn't have last year, that adds to the
Before,
depth of the team.
yeah, of course. Before we get to transfer and funnel, I want to just talk a few more things about the game from the weekend. some of the younger players were playing, of course, that could potentially make a stake for a claim in the first team. Harry Amos, of course, played. Toby Collier played. What do you make of their performances?
Yeah, I thought that Amos was pretty good in that early stretch as well when Hoyland was on the pitch. He looks a lot like Luke Shaw to me in how he
Mm,
plays. He does a lot of the same things. I would say I still generally have concerns with he's a bit undersized physically as of yet. He's still very young. And that would be my main concern is that whether he physically will be up to the task as of yet. Stylistically, he makes a lot of sense. He did well with Rashford. I think it was a big part of the first goal was, the work between him and Rashford on that left side, something Rashford's dearly missed as well as a fullback on that side who will actually make those get forward and help him in possession and get by the defense. There's a couple good interplays where then Rashford was able to send him through and it opens up angles. So maybe he could stake a claim. I feel like he probably needs a year on loan or something to develop a
mhm,
bit more.
mhm.
I don't think he's quite ready. I think the Premier League would eat him up a bit as of now. Collier, I think, is physically ready. He's not at the level of a Kobe Mainu type of player. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about
I
that
mean,
when
to
you
be fair,
watch
it's a
him.
massive bar, but
I
yes,
know,
you're
I
right.
know, but the problem is when you're that age, you almost need to be that good to stake a claim in a team at United, right? If it was a mid-table team, I would be saying right now Collier could be your backup, at 6 and all that. Um, I think the situation with him is that they really want to see if he can show something. I think physically he's up to it. He gets around. He's physical. He moves. But I think there's a lot. It's a difficult job. It's a really difficult position. That position in football, and in possession, I thought he was. The weight of the pass, the crispness, the sharpness of those actions was
Mhm.
was pretty lacking. And unfortunately, we don't really have anybody in that position who offers that at the moment. He's a player I wouldn't mind keeping him and having him in rotation, but he's not a player that tells me we don't have to buy
The,
somebody or even two players there.
the problem for Collier is he's 20
Yeah.
and he would benefit far more developmentally if he goes on loan to a championship
Yes.
club, plays every week, than being a
Yes.
spare part at United.
Yes.
He needs that rhythm of playing every week. He needs to be tested in different ways physically. One thing about Mesbury's loan at Birmingham, it physically toughened him up. Like I remember
Yeah.
last season against Wrexham in San Diego, Wrexham targeted him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were putting the boot into him,
Yep.
and he took it and he never hid. And he likes to give it back, of course, which I like.
Yep.
But that loan definitely physically matured him because you get in the championship now you're going to get tested like that in a way you're not going to get tested in under 23s.
Yes.
It's just not that level of intensity and competition. So he is a talented kid, but he needs to play. I mean, look, if he plays for a year, does really well, comes back to United at 21, he's still a baby, you know
Yeah.
but I think of players like James Garner and stuff that showed enormous potential that just didn't quite make that jump.
Yeah.
United released Shola Shoretiri, last week. It was a kid, it was 16, 17. He played for United. And so the developmental trajectory is just really unpredictable because so much of it is mental and the stuff you don't control. I'd like
Yeah.
to really see Collier go out on loan.
Yeah.
I would agree that he's not ready yet for very promising young talent that's elevated himself into the consciousness of Ten Hag and his scouts. But one thing that was evident when it spoke to people at United on Saturday about how Ineos have changed the football club and the workings of the football club um, was the relationship between Ten Hag, Dan Ashworth, Wilcox, and the Barada around them is very hands on. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yes.
very very close. There's a lot of communication, and for Ten Hag, the positive side of that, he's talking to people that understand football. So
Mm-hmm.
if he's saying, "Look, we must get a defensive midfielder," and these are the reasons why, he's not talking to the Glazers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's talking to people that understand we have a need, we have to fix it. By the way, a side note, I'm not sure if you saw this interview. Uh, I'm not 100% sure what American player is. Forgive me for this. If it was Alex, when she came to United about 2 years ago, the women's team,
Mm-hmm.
and she was
Yeah.
saying that they exceeded expectations. This is related to the point I'm making, by the way. Um, and they were sitting top of the league in December. So they
Yep.
went to the board and they said, "Hey, support us in January so we can go win the league." And they said, "No, it's a 5-year project." This is the problem. And
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you're going to people that were never trying to win the league. Solskjaer,
Yep.
same issue. I also
Yep.
said last week, if United have a need in January, I think any of us would support Ten Hag.
Yeah.
Um, so he's working with people that understand these are problems that have to get fixed for them to realize their ambition. But the other issue is they need to sell, James, and they were
Yes.
clear about that. And the reality
Very
is,
much so.
so
Yeah.
few clubs have money.
Yeah.
So few
Yeah. That
clubs
is a
have
serious
money.
problem.
Hmm.
Yeah. This whole PSR change, obviously, it's limiting United where they're sell to buy, but frankly, so is everybody else. There are so many clubs that are in that same position, and where they need to make moves, and so they need to sell. And you look at it and you think about the players that you could potentially sell when you consider wages, when you consider things like that. It makes it really difficult. They want to keep this going. They feel they've gotten a couple really good signings in, and they want to keep that momentum going, as it was put to me. But where's the money? They need the money. That is what they're sitting there waiting for, is the money, because these
Yeah.
financial restrictions are real. I mean, eh, we've heard before in the past, United don't have money. United don't have money. And I know, so when one looks at it, because then they go out and spend 250 million
Mhm.
and whatever, they've spent pretty significantly already this summer. Over 100 million has been spent. It's
They're
not like
putting
they've not done transfers.
Yes, they're putting deals in place that they can trigger quickly once
Yeah.
scales. And look,
Yes.
Bayern need to sell Delict to do the Todd deal, right? So it's all, United need to sell Wan-Bissaka to do the Mazraoui deal.
Yeah.
But they're all in place so that they can be activated quickly. Now, of
Yep.
course, the word is that they want to sell Wan-Bissaka and that they want to sell Lindelof, and they think that those deals will happen. But it'll be interesting to see if the injury to Euro changes United's
Mm-hmm.
decision on
Yes.
Lindelof. Now, United's situation with these players is if you're down to the last year of your contract, either we
Yep.
renew it or we sell you. But going on
Yep.
a free is something they really want to avoid. So the
Yep.
players that are down to a year on their contract, if you've got a year on your contract, United haven't offered you a new one by now, they're open to selling you.
Yes.
So those
Yep.
players in the past that would have got contract renewals, activated, the 1 year option, all that, United are actively wanting to sell these players.
Yep.
So, and I think what that would mean, based on stuff that we've been told, is that there's players that they would sell that probably in any previous year you would be surprised if they sold them.
Yep.
Obviously, Jadon Sancho comes into this discussion. My sense is United would be very open to selling him. Now, it
Yeah.
makes sense from a business perspective to set everyone down and say, look, integrate him back in the squad. You apologize because it's in your interest. You bring him back in. You get a player. If he doesn't perform to the levels that you need to get in the team, then leave him out. But what doesn't make sense is to continue to sideline him because it drops his value. So I think United would be more than happy to sell Sancho.
Yeah, and the interesting part about all of this is, you're making a point earlier, like the positives of having people in charge who are very hands-on. And
And you can
in
see the
another,
positive in the squad, by the way. The whole
yes,
atmosphere of the squad's very
it's
positive.
way better. And it is way better, and it is a reality. And I know that those are the types of things you want to see tangibly. Look, in terms of results, you can have good and bad preseasons that don't really tell you much about it. But I am, based on past experiences, it is a totally different. I mean, last summer, the word was confusion. That was where I would say the mood was confusion. Like people had no idea really what was going on, what was happening. There was so much confusion. It is not like that. There's a very, the team is in a totally different state of things right now, and it feels very mature, but very, very positive. And even with the things like the staff cuts and all of that that's gone on, there's definitely an understanding of the people remaining of why and how. And there's been enough communication to look at these things and say, we understand and really do feel like this is all for the good of the direction we're trying to go. We get it. The painful things, the things we don't like. The negatives that maybe and I wouldn't even call these negatives. The alternative side of this for Ten Hag, with these people who are very, very hands-on, and they are. I mean, they're really hands-on. Wilcox and Barada and Ashworth and these guys. I mean, they're hands-on. There's a reason they were there on the tour. There's a reason they were there at the trainings and all of that. It's not just for fun. It's not just to watch. They want to
Yeah.
know what they are
Mm-hmm.
doing and why, and they want to give input, and they want to
Mm-hmm.
change it if they think something needs to be changed. And that's fine. Look, that's modern football, but
Mm-hmm.
these are expert people who have worked in this business a long time too, and it's a situation with Sancho. Without them, does it resolve like this? Absolutely not. They're not best friends, Ten Hag and Sancho. They haven't become warm and cuddly over this situation,
But they
but
don't have to be
they
fair.
don't have to. No,
Lots
no,
of
I'm not. But
managers
I'm
players didn't get along with
for
each other. I
sure,
don't. Yeah, that's
for
okay.
sure, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely took input from people who are in charge to say, look, this needs resolving for the good of the club and for all of us, because it benefits everybody. And that's what happened. And so it is. But the reason I say that is yes, Sancho's not a player where Ten Hag would say, I don't want him sold no matter what. Of course, he's not in that position. And Sancho's not in a position where he's saying everything is perfect now and I'm going to stay no matter what happens. Right. So that's all okay, because those types of circumstances are very common in football, where it's like, it's convenient for them to work together, but everybody wants to succeed now. Everybody wants to be on the same page, and that's what matters. So if Sancho can perform for United and can do well, I think he's done decent in this preseason. I think his effort levels have been much better. I think in a lot of ways he's looked better. If he can do that and he performs for United, everybody wins. Everybody wins. And if someone comes in with money for him in PSG, which they would be open to make a deal for him, and he wants to go, then he'll go. And everybody wins in that case too. And that's the good of having people who understand these things, is setting up these scenarios that are positive for the club, kind of whatever happen.
Here's the thing though. If you sell Sancho and you sell Palestri, how close are you getting to being too thin?
Yeah, well, you would have Rashford, Garnacho, Hoyland, Xerxes, Ahmad. So it's 5.
Anthony.
And then Anthony. Well, I say Anthony
How'd
because
you forget him?
I think they're open to, like, if someone came in to take him, he would go. And so I'm saying those are your 5 you're not getting rid of for sure, right? They've pretty much decided, obviously 2 are recent sales. Garnacho, we know. Rashford at this point, there's basically no chance he would leave. Yeah, and Mount could play out there too. So you have enough. I think you have enough. I do think you have. No, but you look at the finances involved. No, but I think you do have enough. I would like to keep Sancho personally. Like at this point, if it wasn't down to finances, I would like to keep Sancho. I think he brings you something different. I think he brings you something different off the left, something we don't have off the left, because I think ideally he can give you off the left what Ahmad can give you on the right from a style standpoint. He's not the same player as Rashford and Garnacho, right? We know that they're different players. So I would like to keep him, but I do think you have enough if he goes. And I'd rather, if it were enabling you to make a move in the midfield, especially, then I think it makes sense to divert the funds, the money there. There's also just the reality that Anthony's probably not going to leave, because I don't think there's anything solid in terms of offers for him. So I think you do have enough for this season. And it's a good age, a lot of young players too. I mean, between Hoyland, Xerxes, Ahmad, and Garnacho, they're all under 25, so you've got them for the long haul too. Yeah, so it's an interesting dilemma there. I would keep him. I still would at this stage of preseason. When I look at the team and how we've played, that midfield still scares me every time. When you see it, it's
on that midfield.
Yeah.
because there seems to be some disagreement on what should happen with Scott McTominay.
Mm.
Because I understand that Ten Hag would like to keep him.
Hmm.
United are open to selling him. And when I was saying earlier about the threshold of players being sold that maybe in the past wouldn't have been, I'm thinking partly about Scott.
Yep.
On a personal level, I think I'd be more than happy to keep him. But the question then becomes is, okay, if we have to sell Scott McTominay to bring in an Ugarte, if that's the case, then they need to do it because
Yes.
Scott McTominay cannot play defensive holding midfielder, right?
Mm-mm.
Because then you partly negate why you want to keep him because he offers you something from an attacking perspective.
Yes.
He gets you goals when you need them, and he's very, very useful to bring on to games if you want to change it. But if you put him in a defensive midfield position where I don't think he's particularly skill sets particularly suited for, I mean, if you look at his resurgence with Scotland, it's in a much higher position to put him in a position that he's not suited in, those are the things that kill you, James. When you
Yes.
try, these are key positions, right?
Yeah.
You can maybe, do a nicely young at the end of his career, put him from a left wing into a left back and get away with it. There's a lot of similarities in that position, but defensive midfield is a position, one, you have to be technically sound because you get a lot of balls put into your feet where you can't see what's behind you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if your touch is not perfect, your vision is not perfect, you have a problem. Manu is perfect for this position because he's very, very intricate, very tight, gets you out of tight positions, and his vision is brilliant. He's
Yep.
very quick. Scott's not that player, and
Mm-mm.
that's a position United can't compromise on. I think they could sell Scott, get decent money for him, and might help get a Garte over the line.
Yeah.
I think that's something United are looking at.
For sure. For sure. And as you said, it's correct. Like in a prior season, you might not have. It probably just wouldn't be sold. But yeah, I mean, as the way it was put to me as well, and Ten Hag likes him, but I am very sure that Ten Hag understands what is needed. He understands the sell to buy aspect of the club too.
Mhm.
He's well informed. He's well in the loop with the higher ups in the hierarchy. It's a constant dialogue, and he knows what's going on, and he's well aware that they have to sell to buy. And as it was put to me, I think he's very much would be open to it, even if he really likes Scott and would love to keep him in an ideal circumstance. He's very much open to it. If an offer comes in and they need to sell him in order to get that reinforcement in the door, he's not going to stand in its way. And so if an offer comes, and I think Fulham are still very much around it, and it comes around 25, 30 million, probably 30 million is what it would take at a, at
Mhm.
a, at a minimum,
And that's
then I
a
think
brilliant
then
price, by the way.
yeah, yeah. I
You know,
think they'll take it because it's profit. It's academy player. 30 million profit is a big impact. I mean, it's the equivalent to in 1 year. Obviously, it's not over 5, but in 1 year, it's the equivalent to 150 million in transfer fees,
mhm.
amortized. So it's a big profit. So I think they would take that if that comes in, and I don't think anyone's going to stop that deal if that offer comes and he wants to take it. And it would definitely give them the ability to make a significant purchase in the midfield for sure.
Yeah, because obviously that's interesting because if they sell Wan-Bissaka, which looks very likely at this point, to bring him
Yes.
as the way, you're talking about a guy that can play right back, left back. Um,
Hmm.
and that to me, it's still a bit short, James, because
Sure.
we have no idea what the situation is with Terrell Malassia's fitness and whether he's even, maybe he needs to be loaned out to get to a particular level. I don't know.
Yep.
Luke Shaw's fitness is unpredictable. We have Dallo that can play right back, left back, but inevitably they're much better in one position, right?
Yep.
Right. So to me, it's still a risk to go into the season without signing an actual left back. I believe Mazraoui plays largely right back because Alfonso Davis plays on the left,
Yep.
on the for back. So um, I think that's still a bit risky, but you could probably get to January with that and be okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. To see
really,
Malasia's situation. Yeah.
Defensive midfield they have to do. I
Yeah,
still think United will sign at least two more players.
that's
Seals.
their intention. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I think Lindelof, 30-year left on his contract. United. Um, there's definitely some movement there, but we'll have to see how Euro affects it and whether that will be enough to get them delict. It's interesting when you look at the Mazraoui deal because it looks like United have agreed to pay more than what West Ham are going to pay, and I don't know if that is about lowering the delict fee.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure if it's definitely finalized or not. I have a feeling it's not, maybe not quite, but they're trying to push that out the door as quick as possible, and there'll probably be add-ons and things like that in there. I wouldn't be surprised if at
With
the end of the
what,
day with
Mazraoui or
Mazraoui, yeah, with
um,
Mazraoui, because I saw the fee report as well, and I have a strong feeling it'll be quite a bit lower on the initial fee, like back around the 15 million or so that they were talking about. Um, but yeah, that and the interesting part about that one, funnily enough, is that for a real positive, why there's a lot of positives to this deal, is Wan-Bissaka at the stage he's in his contract has very little money remaining in terms of an amortization. So they'll actually make a profit on him, if they sell even for 10, 12 million. And it covers it, and financially it works, and he covers both sides. And I think, as you say, it could push us till January, and they'd be willing to reinforce in the January market if we need to. If we look and say, yeah, we're short, we need that extra fullback in because Moss is still not healthy, and Shaw's picked up another injury. Well, they'll reinforce. They will. They will support the team in that way as they can. With Lindelof, it's a bit funny, because the day after Yoro gets injured, he's back in training. He's all good again. And there was definitely some very strong suggestion that he was being held out because of for an impending
mhm.
transfer. It might change things. This is a little bit of a tricky thing because, De Ligt slowed down a lot, in part because of finances and in part because they signed a player in his position, a young player on big money in his position. And they were looking at more of a left-sided defender. But with Lenny Yoro out, depending on how long that is, I think the question becomes, what do you do now in there?
Yeah.
Because you still don't have a backup for Lisandro Martinez, essentially.
Well, if it's a basic metatarsal injury, which is 6 weeks, you still sell
Yeah, it's
Lindelof
not that
because
bad.
it's
Yeah.
really a question of the season. Do you need Lindelof
Yes.
over the course of a season? Yes. It's over 6 weeks? No. We'll be fine. We
Yeah.
have still Danny Evans, still Harry Maguire, still
Yep.
Lissandro Martinez. They'll be all right for 6 weeks. And I don't think
Yes.
you deny yourself, even if you don't buy Delict, you still sell Lindelof
Yep.
because you're not getting money for him after the summer. This is
Yep.
your last chance to get a fee for him. So it
Yep.
would still, to me, be reckless to not sell him. I still think United will.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
mean, we were talking to people on Saturday. It was made clear how badly they need to sell and how
Mm-hmm.
difficult that is right now. And
Yeah.
so how the offers that were coming in was, you couldn't accept them. Um, and this is the reality of PSR. I mean, Liverpool still haven't signed anyone, and it's very difficult. Obviously, any sort of war that United need to bring in other players, and I still think they'll get those done. I don't know if they'll have them done in time for the Community Shield, but as soon as they can sell players, they'll activate on other deals. And
Yeah.
I think if they could sell Jadon Sancho and Scott McTominay, you'd see a couple of deals happen really fast. I'm I don't know if they'll be able to sell Sancho. I do think that they'll sell McTominay. I think if the right, I think they'll get the money for him. I think they'll sell McTominay, and I think Lindelof will go. I'm pretty confident Wan-Bissaka will definitely go.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and then converse to that, Harry Maguire's going to stay at United.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the depth and the center backs and all of that, Harry Maguire is really well respected at United. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more than he gets credit for in other places, from players, from staff, from a lot of intelligent
He's a
people.
decent human being, James.
Yeah, he is, and he's a good guy, and he's good in the dressing room. He's really good with the young players as well, and in his qualities and all that. He's a player you want as depth. You just do. He's a good player to have in that position, and he's likely to stay for that reason. It's just a lot of reasons to keep him. He's also a player who's shown many times he's happy to compete for the job. He's not doesn't feel entitled to it. He's happy to play, take his minutes, do his best when he's on there, and earn what he gets. And I think that's good to see. So yeah, he and Lissandro, obviously Lissandro's staying, but probably you're starting. I mean, right now anyway, you're starting center backs for the season at this point in time.
Mate, the way the football club is being run now is totally different, and
Mm-hmm.
it's more when you see it up close. It's you have to be really
Yeah.
positive, right? Because the thing injuries are going to happen. That's part of out
Yep.
of your control, and United are not in control of PSR, and the current financial situation of the football club
Yep.
has nothing to do with any of us. But these
Correct.
are
Yeah.
people that are highly motivated, that are doing an awful lot to change the atmosphere around the players, and it's very professional, but also conscious of the fact that they need time off, that they need to be able to do certain things, that
Yes.
there needs to be a little bit, to be able to go to dinner, to be able to go out and do things that human beings need to do. So, I would imagine they've spoke to Ten Hag about relaxing some of the disciplinary, parameters and saying, okay, this helps bonding, it helps with team atmosphere, and you could see on their faces that they're much happier than what they've been previous years. And so, despite this injury setbacks, I'm still really optimistic about what the influences any of us are going to have on United's season. I maintain I believe United's season next season. I don't think you agree with this, but this is what I believe, that it'll look a lot like Ten Hag's first season. I think they'll be good. I think that they'll look nothing like they did last season, because if they do, Ten
I
Hag
wouldn't
won't make it
disagree.
to
Yeah.
October.
Actually.
If they do,
Yeah.
Ten Hag won't make it to October, November.
Correct. Correct.
Um, I think that we'll see significant improvement just based on the atmosphere alone, and the fact that these players want to come to United. Now, these
Mm-hmm.
are players that have teammates at the football club, international teammates. If things were horrendous on the inside, they'd be telling players, "Don't come here," because
Mm-hmm.
so the fact that despite Varane and Martial leaving, Euro still wants to come to United. Despite the fact that Van de Beek and all that was leaving, and Ten Hag's last season wasn't great, Delict wants to come. Right, Xerxes wants to come. Mazraoui wants to come. These are players that have had other options. Xerxes could have went to Milan. Mazraoui could have went to West Ham. Delict could stay at Bayern. But Euro could have went to Real Madrid, but they want to come to his football club. That is an indication of how convincing Ineos are of their ambition and their sincerity to accomplish that ambition.
For sure. And I actually would agree with you. As the summer has gone on, I do think next year will be a lot better. And there's been
Mm.
times where you felt like with United, there's obviously a lot to do. There's a lot to do in terms of players. There's a lot to do in terms of people. There's a lot to do with all of that. But there's so many times at United where it felt like no matter what you did, you could have all the players in the world, you could have all the signings in the world. Somehow it's just not going to work, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
going to go badly. And when you kind of get up close and personal, it's kind of obvious why, because there's so much wrong. It's just there's so many weird things. I mean, I made the comparison just to last year in the States, the tour, the behavior of people around the club, complete opposite of what it was
Mm-hmm.
last year. Where I said confusion or whatever, it was so negative in so many ways last year that it was like you always got this odd, I just want to say this, you always got this odd feeling about United under the Glazers that the club was the enemy of the fans. Like they felt like the fans were the enemy, and they felt like the people around you were the enemy, and they were always under attack and like doing something like defending themselves, and some of that was
Yeah,
fairly justified. You know what I mean? But that comes from the Glazers, of course. That
yeah, of
why that
course,
is.
of course.
It doesn't feel that way. It's very different, the behaviors of everybody, to where it's like there's like they when you talk about fans getting behind a team and them all being together, I think there's actually a tangibleness to the way that people act in the real world that opens the door to that type of thing.
So
And I would say it
yeah,
is a tangible change. and how things are, and in a level of openness, of communication, but also of competence, to
Cool.
where I think that almost the opposite, that even if we're short in some areas, it's going to be better than we've seen no matter what. Like, the math is just going to work out better one way or another because of this. And I hope to see that, but I do think that way.
They're even the media guys are all in suits.
Yeah.
Now, normally there are polo shirts, not there. The
Yep.
United, a lot of United's media guys own United's media team own suits. Previously, they all had their guard up, and
Yes.
there was a real fear of letting something slip,
Yep.
transparency, because
Yes.
obviously who you work for determines how you relate to people. Where it's like, okay, if I let something slip here, it could cost me my job, and so there's a nervousness in communication because you fear, these are people that if I'm transparent with them, there was always a nervousness in communication because they didn't want to be asked certain questions they couldn't answer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understood that, right? And they're accountable to other people that will, tell them if you say this or do this, you lose your job. So I understood it, but now there's much more lax. Now they're willing to talk about things that that they're not trying to hide or obfuscate, and they're not covering for people. And there's a willingness for open communication, which is encouraging. So I definitely feel, changing the atmosphere and changing the incentive structure is key to, going back to that Alex Morgan interview, when the players' ambition supersedes the owners, you have a
Yeah.
big problem. And that's where you
Huge
lose.
problem. Yeah.
Well, that's where you players become unmotivated. That's when you see the body language where they
Yep.
eventually give up on believing the club are committed to accomplishing their goals. That's not
Yep.
there anymore. So
Yep.
I do feel Ineos have a sense of urgency to bring in a couple of players. So I think we'll see quite a bit of movement, before the Community Shield. The game on Wednesday against Betis. What do you expect from that? Do you expect United to not change the team at halftime, to start looking at, okay, let's give 60 minutes to the team that may take the field against City? Obviously, a lot of players are still back in Manchester, but of the players that are here that may play against City, do you expect them to get longer on the field?
I'm thinking no for Wednesday. I feel as though it'll be on Saturday, the final game against Liverpool. They're going to try to give it a bit of a run because they'll
Yeah, I
have,
suppose, yeah, Saturday, yeah,
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 because they've got just a few days in between, obviously. So I feel like Wednesday's the take it easy game. Saturday, then you have a whole week after that for recovery, for everything. So I kind of feel like Wednesday will be pretty
if
similar
I
to what we
interrupt
just
you, mate,
saw. What's
if I
that?
could interrupt you, mate, sorry, mate, if I could interrupt you there, just on that point,
Yeah.
one of the things that was different this year was United were based on one location.
Yes.
They're
Big
not moving
difference.
all over
Yeah.
the place, and they're only going to San Diego for the day and straight back. So I would agree that there's been a huge emphasis put on proper rest, recovery, and
Yeah.
only thing is, last season San Diego United played a really, a second string at
I know.
very high prices, and I just wonder if they'll feel pressure to play some of the first team
Well,
players.
the last time it was like pretty much just the academy, and so I
Mhm.
think we'll see a pretty similar. I think the lineup we got in Los Angeles was good. I think if you get a
Mhm.
similar lineup to that in San Diego, it's fine. Everybody will feel
Right.
like they got their money. And so I think 45 minutes of that is okay, and then by Saturday push it to 60. I think is probably what will happen, because that's also, the game in South Carolina was pretty highly promoted originally. It's
Mhm.
it's actually kind of a big deal. The one they're not playing a lot of games, obviously, but coming across the country for that one in particular, I think is something they want to really make an impact on in a totally different environment, a totally different city. I think a lot of the people who've followed United from the UK on this one are going to be in for a little bit of a culture shock, going from like Los Angeles to Columbia, South Carolina, the difference in the area. And I don't mean bad. It's totally different. The US is pretty funny. That was one of the things I was just chatting with some people that they learn about the US is it's a lot different than you might think. It's not one
Very
country. It's a
diverse.
lot of little
Completely different.
countries, essentially, is what it
Mm,
is. And you'll
completely
see
different.
that. So I think that'll be fun. I also think that'll be a huge crowd there. Huge crowd there. I expect it to be very, very busy in South Carolina. But yeah, I would say maybe similar to what we got in Los
Yeah,
Angeles
because
Wednesday.
Liverpool are going to be similar to City, and I think if United lose the Betis, it's not going to make anywhere near the same
Yep.
headline as living to Liverpool and the Dutch rivalry between Arne Slot and
True.
Eric Ten Hag. So
Yeah, true.
Eric Ten Hag will want to get one over on him. But all right, matey. That will do us. It's 50 minutes
Yes.
in. So
That's
thank
pretty
you to
good.
all of you. Yeah, for downloading the podcast, for supporting us as always, for subscribing on our YouTube channels and our podcast platforms. Very, very much appreciated. We'll be back again next week. And for those of you who watch on YouTube, I will activate subtitles.
Good luck to the subtitles.
Is that you, John Wayne? That's my best American accent.
That's your best. That's it.
Yeah, I was practicing it for my girlfriend when we were trying to have phone sex, but it didn't work.
Oh, okay.
So I had to give up after like 3 tries. And I'll send this in text. Send you a letter. But nope. Thanks to all of you for all your support. As always, much appreciated.
Appreciate it.
And I'm gonna try and get some sleep because I am shattered.
Yeah.
So
Have a good one.
take it easy, folks. See ya. Bye,
See
Matt.
you later.
Bye.